The original TimeSplitters was a game I checked out a few weeks ago, and I was pretty met on it. It felt like a multiplayer focused game with single player elements shoved into it. But TimeSplitters 1 is not the game I hear about a lot. That is the second game. Coming out 2 years later, TimeSplitters 2 came out to the universal opinion, game good. But 22 years has passed, so let's have a gander and see if it's worth checking out. Starting off, the game visually is significantly better. Environments, character models, and weapon models all look great, and have had a significant improvement. There's still no animations to reloading, it's very much still the power of suggestion. Characters this time around actually look pretty nice. They've embraced the goofy looking nature of the characters from the first game, and made them look, well, good. It's still very much a case of burly men and big bobbed women, but there are some pretty cool soldier skins and some extra characters you get from the challenges that won't be too far removed from modern Call of Duty bundles. The story, yes this game has a story this time around with cutscenes and all, follows two space soldiers, mainly this handsome chap, as he adventures through time to obtain time crystals from the TimeSplitters. While you are the space chap, you become another person as you go through the different time periods. I have no idea what's going on with this. I thought maybe he's just taking on the form of a regular person to match and blend into where he is, but he seems to have a backstory to wherever he is, like he's just turned up and he's got this long history with the enemies in the area. At the start of each level we also have this little introductory cutscene, which just adds to the feeling that this is more fleshed out than the previous game. They are also pretty nicely done too, pretty entertaining for what they are, and they normally match the theme of the level. The music is also pretty good, goes from some grooving tunes. To whatever the fuck this is. I did not like this one at all. This was very annoying. It sounded like I left a brick in the washing machine. Like the previous game, you are tasked with playing through missions, travelling through different time periods, but unlike the first game, your main objective is not just to find a random item, then make a runner while being chased out. The levels are actually a bit more fleshed out this time around, and have multiple objectives and side objectives. Though some of the main objectives do feel like they should be side ones. Like in this level, draining the whiskey barrels seems like a secondary objective to the rest of them. You can meet the informant, get into the nightclub, eliminate Big Tony, and retrieve the time crystal, but if you haven't drained those whiskey barrels, well, you're a failure. It just seems odd, especially with the inclusion of the secondary objectives. Were they just too scared to fill them up too much? I don't know. I also did have to use the old Google machine on a few occasions to actually figure out what the hell I was meant to be doing in certain levels, as this time the levels are a lot bigger than the previous one. The previous game felt like we were just adventuring through a multiplayer map with some random enemies and item placement, but this one actually feels like designed single player levels. You do have this handy gadget which acts as a map and also helps you locate some objectives and enemies. It also has the exact same voice as the No Man's Sky lady.
Time crystal located.
Some levels do include stealth, and though it's incredibly basic, it's still quite fun. You don't do it a lot, but when it's there it's really fun. Using your map you can check enemies and cameras' cone of vision to make sure you're not being spotted. Using silenced weapons to take out enemies obviously is the play to keep sneaky. Most missions for me anyway did at some point result in going guns blazing. So I'm not sure if you can keep it 100% sneaky throughout. Most levels in the game were fun to play and had a nice variety of objectives to do. But the later levels containing all the futuristic elements like the robots and the sci-fi guns I found to be quite painful and annoying to play through. The enemies in these just felt like they were never going to die, and it was just super frustrating to play through. Probably a skill issue, but I just found these to be an absolute slog to get through, and I just never enjoyed them when they turned up. When it comes to the levels, there's quite a good amount of variety in there. Rather than 3 distinct time zones, we get a bit more exciting here. From old-timey Chicago for some mafia gang fighting, to Neo-Tokyo for some sneaky cyberpunk-esque levels, even exploring some Aztec areas solving an infuriatingly annoying puzzle that I had to Google. We also go for a wander around Notre Dame saving women from spooky monsters. There's a little bit of everything. Some more interesting than others, but it depends what you like. Because of the different time zones, we also have a lot of variety in weapons again. All your typical weapons you're used to seeing in games like this, but they are all pretty fun to use. But I always found the modern weapons to be the most enjoyable to use. In this series so far, I haven't cared much for the futuristic weapons as much. I just never feel like they're doing any damage to anything. I'd much rather use a wacky looking AK. The gameplay itself is pretty much exactly the same as the previous game. You don't have much in the way of movement, no jumping or sprinting, and aiming is still either hip firing for a hopeful lock-on, or using the game's still awkward to use precision mode. Once you are used to everything, the game does play pretty well, but this time around I found the game's lock-on to be a bit looser than previous. There were times where I was right in front of an enemy, but it just wouldn't even be trying to hit them. The precision mode is still annoying to use, as it still tries to center itself, so you're always fighting it while you're trying to hit precise sniper shots on enemies or cameras. Other than the game's campaign, we also do have challenges again. Split into two types, arcade and challenge modes. Arcade is broke up into 3 difficulty options, with each having a boatload of missions to do. Most of them are multiplayer modes that you play with bots, and these challenges tend to task you with completing them within a certain time limit. The quicker you do it, the better trophy you get. These unlock different characters and modes. These weren't too bad, though playing with bots has its downfall on team-based modes, where it's pretty much you against an army trying to do some pretty hefty lifting. It also made me realise that TimeSplitters is actually pretty influential in its multiplayer modes, with having kill confirmed style modes, and a mode similar to Battlefield's and Battlefront's operations. These were a nightmare to play alone, but it was a nice change of pace to the normal TDM modes, and these were my favourite modes in Battlefield, so it was a nice surprise to see that idea show up here. The challenges are similar to the ones found in TimeSplitters 1, like breaking glass with bricks again. Some of these are fun, some not. Luckily, trophy-wise on the PS5, it's not required to get all gold, because, my god, this would have been insufferable. I think I would have had a stroke trying to get all gold on these. Other modes include local multiplayer in the form of the arcade custom mode, and it's a typical thing for its time. Pick and choose maps, settings, bots and characters, and we also have a map maker, which was in the first game, I just forgot to mention it. It's here as well. You can also do split screen I think for the adventure, but I personally never tried this so I don't know the limitations of this. So I think we've covered all involved in TimeSplitters 2, I hope. It's a significantly better game than the original, and something I actually would recommend trying out, if you like this type of thing. Old school style shooters from a very long time ago. I bought the game for like 2 or 3 quid on a PSN store during the sales, so you can get this one and the other two incredibly cheap if you so choose. Single player is fun, the arcade and challenge mode will keep you busy for a little while, depending on your tolerance of pain. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.